Amen. Day called generosity. That boy found some needs, and he looked for ways to meet those needs. Now, before you say, well, that's fine for him, but I'm never going to Africa, and I'm never bringing anybody in Africa anything, let alone soccer balls, you must remember that this dad said that it's not only helping people over in Africa, but it also can be helping somebody down your street. It can happen anywhere. In fact, the Bible talks about generosity and says that it is something that we are supposed to do. So let me lay the question before you today. Are you a generous person? Our passage Matt read, I'm going to read again. Very short, we'll read it again one more time. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verses 17 to 19. It says, "Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life." What does it mean to be generous? Looked it up on the dictionary, and this is what it says. It means to be lavish in giving or sharing, unselfish, free from meanness or smallness of mind or character. And those who receive generosity receive something large, abundant, or ample. Now, what are the situations that Paul writes these words in the book of 1 Timothy? Paul and Timothy were together. They were working at the church at Ephesus. They were leading it, caring for it, and Paul left on one of his journeys. And he said, "Timothy, I want you to take care of this church while I'm gone." And he gave him some very specific instructions on how to do this, and he covers these in this letter in 1 Timothy. And one of the things he covers was the topic of money and riches. And he had just said in chapter 5 that the pursuit of riches, seeking after riches, actually leads to destruction. Then he says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And so now as he closes the letter in 1 Timothy chapter 6, he once again hits the topic of money and riches, and he says, don't put your hope in riches. Don't put your hope in wealth. There is no security in them, but put your hope in God, who provides everything and in fact does give you security. And those who have should be generous with those who do not have. And the result is riches in heaven. Now, before you say, well, but this passage doesn't relate to me because this is talking about rich people doing this, and I'm not rich. Really? A couple of years ago, I shared with you a website called globalrichlist.com. You remember this one, if you're here? Which tells you, based on your income, where you are in the top percentage of the richest people in the world. In other words, how much you make per year gives you an indicator of how high you are on the rich scale, the top percent. So I looked it up. If you make $100,000 per year, you are in the top 1% of the richest people in the world. Okay, maybe you don't qualify. How about $50,000 to $100,000 a year? You are still in the top 1% of the richest people in the world. How about $40,000 a year? You are now in the top 4% of the richest people in the world. $30,000 is in the top 8% of the richest people in the world, and the U.S. poverty level of $22,000 a year is in the top 10% of the richest people in the world. Let's say you just make minimum wage in the United States. You are in the top 13% of the richest people in the world. Let's say you only make $5,000 a year. You are in the top 15% of the richest people of the world. Have I left anybody out here today? What does that mean? It means that all of us, according to what Paul is saying, are part of the people who are rich in this present world. And so, yes, this applies to us. So, okay, what am I supposed to do? He says, do good, be rich in good deeds, be willing to share, and be generous. If you were with us for the last couple of months, we went through a campaign called the 30-Day Church Challenge. And in that 30-Day Church Challenge, we discovered in chapter 2 that there are 5 purposes that the first church majored in that made them the church that God wanted them to be, and we discovered that those purposes also apply to us. And one of them we found that they practiced was called personal stewardship. A steward is a manager of someone else's property. Nothing belongs to the steward. He is simply managing that which belongs to the owner. And so in that church, that first church in Acts 2, we discovered that they put their time, their talents, their treasures together, and they made sure that there was no one in the church that had a need. They sold everything, and they gave to everyone who had a need. Why would they do this? Because they understood the fact that they weren't the owners. They were the managers. They were the stewards of what God had given to them. I recently read a book, small little book, entitled Generosity by an author named Gordon MacDonald, and this is what he says about that first church. He says, Luke, who wrote the book of Acts, is writing to a specific audience that knows little, if anything, about giving. It is a world that is dominated by an unfeeling, self-centered perspective toward the poor and the needy. So if one has been shaped by that worldview, these characteristics of the first church are astonishing. It is a remarkable thing to be able to say, if any person had need, we gave to them, so there were no persons in need. Nobody was in need in that church. It was this mind and heart perspective that would explain the early success of the church. In a heartless world, the generosity and service of the first Christian generations was such a stunning contrast that people everywhere stood up and took notice. It is fair to speculate that Christian generosity and service did more to win people to the gospel of Christ than all the preaching that was done. They liquidated possessions, they brought them to the apostles, they distributed to everyone. Generous giving was the foundation of the Christian movement. It was the overflow of hearts that felt the mercy of God, and as they received mercy, they felt that they needed to give it away in some practical way. So, this kind of generosity is to characterize the church. We are to be generous. How do we do that? I had an interesting experience this week. I pulled into the gas station to fill up the car, pumped the gas, was heading inside to the gas station to pay the bill. And as I headed inside, I heard a voice behind me which said, "Excuse me, sir, can you help me?" I turned around to see a woman standing before me who had what looked like an empty gallon gas container in her hand. She said, "My car broke down. I've walked to the gas station and I don't have any money for gas. Could you buy me 1 gallon of gas?" This week, being the end of the month, was a week that in our family we were pinching pennies. Can you relate to this? As Ted often says, too much month for our money. That's what our week was like at my house. Maybe it was like that at your house. So I turn to this woman, and she says this to me, and immediately I start doing some calculations in my brain. Do I have the money to pay for 1 gallon of gas for this woman? It's cheaper than it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Do I need this money for something else this week? Yes, I do. So what do I do? I thought to myself, is God giving me a test right now with this woman. I don't know this woman. I'm never going to see this woman again. I don't know if she really has a need or if she's just blowing smoke. I don't know if this is legitimate or not. What am I going to do? Sure, come on in. I'll pay for the gallon of gas. And she followed me in. I drove away from that thinking, God, was this a test? Because you know that's what I'm preaching Sunday. We're testing me to see whether or not I believe this stuff that I preach to people. That was an opportunity for me to be generous with someone else. Let me give you another example of generosity. Like for him, how's it going to work? I need to give my cousin my iPad. She said, it's just something I'm supposed to do. I'm moving beyond easy. When she did it, others did it. It wasn't about me giving it. It was about the kids receiving it. And it caused a movement of overflowing generosity. The joy that comes, that touches so many people, it's the joy in just giving away. Recently, I came across an article that I've shared with a few that describes 50 ways to start living generously. And I looked at this list and I thought, I want to share a few of these with you today because you may be thinking, how do you actually do this generosity thing? What would it look like? Volunteer your time. Send personal note to church's military members who are overseas. Go out of your way to help find a general interview. Take a meal to a shut-in and stay and eat with them. Anonymously pay for someone for something. Offer a ride to a friend while his car is in the shop. Send a card to someone for a need. Lend a patient ear. Mow the yard for someone. Ask, how can I help? And say yes for an entire day to every request for assistance. Carry some cash that you can give spontaneously away. Look for people who are alone and introduce them to others. For a period of time, give away the money you would have spent eating out to a missions cause. When someone asks to borrow something they don't have, give it to them and let them keep it. Help someone raise funds or complete a project. And here's one more. Fund to a widow in need. She said, I cannot give what I don't have, but I can give what I have. So in response to that, someone else decided to buy her a car, and not a used one, but a new one, and somebody else heard about it and wanted to help them do that. She said the joy in giving is unbelievable. It started with Catherine giving away, and it continued on. Generosity begets generosity. Now, why would we do this? We don't do it in order to receive. We do it because that's what Jesus did. Jesus gave his life. So let's be generous. Let's pray.